Well, as governor, I am committed to making sure that all children in Rhode Island have access to high-quality, free public education. The good news is that we don't really have to spend more money to do that because Rhode Island spends just about the same as Massachusetts per pupil, but Massachusetts has much better results. So it's not really a question of money. We don't need to just throw money at the problem. We need to be smarter about how we invest our money. And what that means is focusing more on outcomes, on student achievement, treating teachers like the professionals that they are, and giving them the support and the tools that they need in order to be excellent professional teachers. I also believe it's time to allow more autonomy at the school level and at the teacher level. You know, I have 2 kids in the Providence public school system, so I know about this not just as a statewide leader, but as a mother. Classroom teachers know what the kids need. So we need to have high standards, a good curriculum, which is broad, to make sure we teach students everything that they need, support our teachers, and then hold them accountable. I think it is appropriate. Now they have 2 separate councils, one for K through 12 and another for higher ed. And that is appropriate because there are different issues, K through 12 versus higher ed. But much more important than the governance is that we have leadership, that we have a leader in the governor and in the Commissioner of Education who is committed to high standards and excellence throughout our public schools. As I said, every child in Rhode Island deserves access to high-quality, free public education. That means even if you live in a poor neighborhood or a zip code that isn't the high-rent district, you should be able to go to a public school and get an education that means something and have the skills that you need in order to get a job or go to college. And that's much more about leadership and having a leader who's going to set high standards, have a broad curriculum, and then hold people accountable. There's not enough accountability in state government, not just in education, but throughout that. And I'm a governor who's going to set the standards high, hire the best, and hold people accountable. I would not do anything else. The pension reform that the General Assembly passed in 2011 was a comprehensive reform which cut the state's unfunded liability nearly in half, and it saved the people of Rhode Island taxpayers over $4 billion over the next 20 years. Especially, it probably prevented the bankruptcy of more than one city and town because it saved hundreds of millions of dollars for cities and towns. The most important thing is the reform put the pension system on firm footing. So when I took office as treasurer, the system was a mess. It was one of the worst funded in the country. And in 20 years, we would have had to be telling people, you can't have a pension. Now it's secure. It's on a secure funding stream. It was 48% funded when I took over. It's 60% funded now. And it's on a good, stable, predictable, affordable path to 80% funding. And the most important thing is because of the changes that were made, it's going to be secure even if the stock market goes up and down, which we know it will do. So I applaud the General Assembly for doing the hard work about that reform. It's the most comprehensive reform any state in the country has done. And we ought to just let it work. We should let it work and continue that path to stability and predictability. It is of great concern that we as a state will over time lose potentially hundreds of millions of dollars of gambling revenue. A few things. First, we need to be realistic about the problem. We know now that that's coming. So we can't wait for 3 years to come up with a plan. We need to be realistic and right away say, we're going to lose the revenue over this period of time, and let's make a plan to prepare for it. Too often in Rhode Island, we wait. You know, the Superman building is a great example in downtown Providence. It's empty. It didn't empty out overnight, but we waited until it was empty to try to come up with a plan. And in that case, the plan was just ask the taxpayers to bail out a bad investment. So number one, let's be honest and realistic and plan for it. Number two, the only solution is to grow the economy. The reality is Rhode Island is overly dependent on gambling revenue. Among other states, we are overly dependent. The percent of our revenue that comes from gambling is very high. So the way to change that is to increase the pie, increase the rest of the economy. And I'm running for governor to do that. I have a comprehensive jobs plan designed to create tens of thousands of jobs in areas of our strength, specifically manufacturing, over the next 10 years. That's how we do it. You know, the way to raise revenue is to get people back to work. And the way to wean ourselves from gambling revenue is to increase other revenue. And if we employ, right now we have over 40,000 unemployed people. Imagine how much revenue we could have if those people had jobs and were paying taxes. So the only solution to what ails Rhode Island is broad-based economic growth. Yes, I do think cities and towns need to regionalize, consolidate, and look for ways to be more efficient and save money. We're the smallest state in the country, and we should be the most streamlined and the most efficient. Some cities and towns are doing that. They're looking to collaborate on their dispatch services, like for 911. We don't necessarily need one in every city and town. They should share. And so that has begun. What I will do as governor is propose a plan which would increase the amount of state aid that the state gives to cities and towns, but link that increase to what I call good behavior. So to provide an incentive for cities and towns to be more efficient, effective, consolidated, and streamlined. So for example, if a city and town fixes their pension system, which needs to happen, or if a city and town does shared services and saves money, then they can receive more state aid. We need to provide incentives for cities and towns to do this, because if we do that over time, then we can bring down the cost of government and also bring down property taxes. Property taxes in Rhode Island are too high. If you talk to people, talk to families, they're struggling to pay their property taxes. Maybe they can pay their mortgage, but not their property taxes. So the way to do that is encourage and incentivize cities and towns to have shared services and consolidation, bring down their cost, and over time bring down property taxes.